Hey there lovely people, Jonathan Mark Mendes, Painted Love, and welcome to my channel. Today's project is a relatively simple paint finish, but nevertheless there's going to be some really interesting things happening throughout the process, so stick with me. The piece of furniture that you see behind me was a marketplace find for free. I was super excited, and then when I got it back to the studio, I realized it wasn't quite as good as it looked on the pictures. So this piece of furniture is constructed of many different things. There is particle board, there is a little bit of melamine, there is a little bit of real wood. I would say only 30% of this piece of furniture is real wood. So it's a multiple surface piece of furniture. And I will be using something completely new to me for a paint finish on there. So you might want to stick around. I think it's quite exciting, and especially with the beautiful color choices that could be had with this brand of paint. Anyway, I'll explain that a little later on in the tutorial. Let's take a closer look at the piece of furniture. As usual, at this stage, I like to take you through my train of thought on where I might take this piece and the reasons why. So as you know, this piece of furniture has a mixture of different elements. So there is particle board on the sides with a thin coat of veneer on the outside. Inside, it's not melamine, I did mention melamine, but it is a thin particle board with a printed, kind of a plastic printed faux wood. So that does govern whether we showcase any of the, I'm going to say natural timber. I don't think there's much natural timber going on this piece. So I won't be revealing any of the wood, because if I'm to sand that thin veneer, I'm most likely to go through it and then it won't look very nice. So I know that in my mind it's going to be a whole painted piece. We're going to cover all of the surfaces so that you cannot recognise any of those finishes that lie underneath. So it's going to be colour drenched top to bottom in a paint finish. There are a couple of other issues that I'm not keen on with this piece, one of which is this carved detail. Now I say carved very loosely. For some reason this sort of 20-30-year-old pieces of furniture in the UK have this sort of reference on the top. It looks like it's been heat pressed into the timber, and I think that dates it to about 20-30 years ago, and I think it will just look like that period of furniture with that detail if I don't lose it. So I'm going to fill that surface, get a nice flat finish. We may add a moulding to add a carved detail that sticks out from the piece, and I think that will kind of give it a older look. So I'm going for something that looks 100 years old in a modern cottage vibe. So that's where I'm at in my head. Modern cottage with a full colour over the whole piece with this wonderful shape, because I think it is a great shape, but if we lose that, paint it flat, we hide all of those other issues underneath, we should be good to go. So the first thing that I'm going to do is remove the hardware. That's another thing that has to go. These long sort of French handles, I think that kind of dates it to a period of time as well. We're going to lose them, maybe just add some simple knobs on the top and bottom. I'm going to paint the cupboard doors with the hardware on. I know a lot of people will probably cringe, but I think I like that look with the paint just slightly chips off the hardware. But I am going to remove all of the other brackets from the inside, because this does house glass normally. So I'm going to take the little brackets off on the inside, and then we can start with the primer coat and discussing the paint that I'm going to use. Now we have all of the carved details filled and sanded perfectly smooth, ready to receive its primer coat and its finish coat of paint. I've gone over the whole piece and dusted it down to remove any of the debris from sanding. I've used crud cutter to clean the whole piece to make sure there's nothing oily or greasy on the surface to receive my primer before the finish coat of paint. I have taken a look at the vacant space where the carved details were, and I am going to add a moulding to embellish that area in a different kind of way. So I've been through my Iron Orchid design moulds, and what I've chosen to go with is the Bose mould. Remember, we're going for a modern cottage feel, and I'm keeping it just one colour. We're not adding any dark waxes or shading. It's going to be one flat colour across the whole piece. The reason I'm choosing this is it's highly detailed. So with it being one colour, we're going to get lovely casts of shadows over those details to make those beautiful details stand out over the whole piece. I have cast this whole mould so I can play around with where this mould fits on the piece. I'm using a white casting resin. It's 2 parts, 50-50. Mix them together. It goes off in 15 minutes and you can pop them out of the moulds. Here's the smaller of the two. So that's the smaller one. I've tried the smaller one in the space, but it feels just a little too small for that area. So I'm thinking I will go with the larger bow. This does come with its tails, and the tails go, I think they go, which way do they go? Maybe that way? I don't know. Oh, they go that way. It's upside down. That way. So they go off sideways. There's the other one. So they go like that. The spacing is definitely not enough. And I do love the way this bow looks. So what I'm going to do is cut these down and somehow attach them. I think we're going to go upside down, I think. Cut them down and do them sideways. So it should look a little like, hang on, something like that across the top. So we've got that whole top area covered with the bows. So I'm going to cast another 3 of these sets ready to work out the placement on the top surface of each cupboard door. I'm going to put you on fast play now so you can just see how easy this casting resin is and how quick it goes off. I'm going to start with applying my mouldings to the door front. So what I've got here is the central bow plus the 2 tails, which I've shortened. They ordinarily do go underneath this bow in between there, but I'm working to a long aperture. So I've shaved off a little bit of this moulding. I've sanded the edges. I'm going to allow it to sit in that nook and then just randomly to the side. So we've got this lovely elongated bow. So I'm going to work the central part of the moulding, and I'm going to use the design in the middle to get my centre. I know that that circle there is my centre. I'm going to use a good quality wood glue, You do need something that's quite strong and goes off quick. So this is a quick drying wood glue. You could use thick and quick. That's an awesome glue for these mouldings. So let's go in with the first moulding. It's now day 2 of my project and I'm back in the studio nice and early, beautiful sunshiny day outside, so I'm ready and rearing to go. So much so, I've already made some changes and I didn't film it, I just got stuck in. There was something niggling me about the project and you probably can see that there is a slight change. So as you can see through the centre, there is a shelf in the upper cabinet and I've added a piece of timber. Here's the offcut, it's just a square piece of timber that I've added across the shelf at the front. And the reason being is the shelf internally it's glass. And the reason they've added glass to this cabinet is because up there is a light to illuminate the whole space. So this little bit of timber is more or less just for cosmetic reasons. As you look in, it will appear to be almost a solid wood shelf, and I think that is probably right for this piece of furniture with us giving it slight age. There would never have been a kind of glass shelf floating around in this style of cabinet, at least I don't think so. So how I've added that is a simple cosmetic change. I've drilled through the sides into the timber either side, glued and screwed, and then filled the drill hole on the side so you'll never know it's there. Structurally, there's going to be no weight on that section, so it is purely cosmetic. Whilst we're talking about cosmetic, I've come up with another idea and I just feel that it will add something more to this cabinet. So we have our beautiful bow mouldings. My concern is that they look like they're just floating around and I really want to tie them in, embed them into the piece. So I've decided to go with more mouldings, but this time I'm going to be using a wood U-bend trim. This trim is one of mine. I designed it, a very simple design. It's just a half round moulding. Sometimes we need something that's a little bit plainer. There's the detail. We're going to go with some trim that will connect this whole aperture of the door. So my plan is just a little way in from this natural trim. We're going to add the trim around the door, connecting back to the 2 tails of the bow moulding on all of the 4 doors. I think that will really add, because it's going to be protruding again, lots more detail. And also I think it will elongate the piece. I just feel like it will narrow things down, make it look more elegant. So that's the first thing that I'm going to do, is add this Would You Bend trim. And also on the lower cupboard where we have a solid surface, I'm thinking that in the solid surface I may add the trim again and create another moulding that goes internally to that aperture. You're going to watch it all anyhow. So I'm going to crack on because I'm a little bit behind now on this project because of all of this extra work. So let's get some Would You Bend mouldings on the piece and then we can talk about the paint. I promise you we will get to that paint at some point. Okay, so all of the trims and mouldings are on the piece and I could not be more happier with the outcome. I'm loving the way that the bow mouldings kind of echo the scalloped edge underneath the cubbyhole, and the extra trims I think were absolutely the right thing to do. And of course the double extra trim on the bottom I think really does make a difference. It stops it from being a little bit samey across the whole piece, and it grounds it, makes it a little bit heavier at the bottom. So all that's left to do now is give the whole piece a good old clean. We've been working on the piece and there'll be bits of dust and debris, so I need a really clean surface ready to apply my primer coat. The primer that I'll be using today is PX4 by Crown. I think it is a UK based product only. You could use something like Zinza Bin 123. It's a no need to scuff sand primer and it goes on multiple surfaces. It's water based and it will adhere to just about anything, and it will give a good base coat for the paint colour. So I promised you a paint that I have never used before and I'm so excited to be using this. It's Farrow Ball. Farrow Ball have been on the go for many, many years, and I lied to you because I did use Farrow Ball as an eggshell paint many moons ago before I even did any videos, and it was a really good quality paint, and the colours are second to none. It's absolutely gorgeous. There are so many beautiful shades to choose from. So the paint that I'm actually using is not the eggshell range, it's actually an emulsion for walls. Now when you say emulsion for walls, you're going to think, why would you put emulsion on a piece of furniture? Well, this one is very, very special. It can go on multiple surfaces, so you can paint your ceiling, coving, walls, architraves, trims, skirting boards, radiator, fireplace. It is a really, really good, highly scrubbable, scratch resistant quality paint with a dead matte finish. So it feels a little bit like a chalk style paint to me, and I have been playing around with it on some sample boards. So I've done a sample board. This is the colour that I'll be using, although I have used a different colour over the top with a colour wash as a practice run. I just wanted to see whether it would react a little bit like chalk paint does, and it really does. I did a wash of a lighter colour over the top. It grabbed into all of the details and it looks absolutely amazing. And scratch resistant, really, really hard. You can kind of hear it on camera. It's really, really durable. I also did practice using a wax over the top because I thought if I wanted to use some tinted waxes, I could do, but it really doesn't need it. It is really, really bomb-proof. So I'm so excited to be using Farrow Ball, especially with all of those gorgeous colours. The colour that I'll be using is Salvage, which is the blue, and I've also got a colour that is an off grey white, which is Ammonite, which I thought I might use in the upper section of this cabinet, just to kind of give it a little bit of contrast, and when that light's on, we'll have a lovely white glow in an evening. So let's get stuck in with cleaning and adding the primer to the surface. I'm not going to use a roller. I want there to be a little bit of textural, like this has been painted by hand. So I'm just going to use a brush, one coat of primer over the whole piece, and then we can get stuck in with the Salvage. So I have my internal sections of this cabinet with its first layer of paint on using Ammonite, which is a absolutely beautiful, very sophisticated white. It's got a greyish tinge to it, which I'm thinking will pair very well with this beautiful, smoky, greeny grey blue, which is called Salvage. Oh my goodness, I am so thrilled with how this project is going. So just a moment off camera, I gave the interior of this piece another coat of the Ammonite. It is a lighter colour, so it did need that second coat to create full coverage. The exterior has only had one coat of paint over the whole piece, and it is nearly 100% covered, apart from a few little sharp edges, a few little areas that I've missed. So I'm going to go back and tickle them in just to get that full coverage on the exterior. I think the darker colours really do give great coverage. I want to show you the can of paint. It's really difficult to see. You might be able to see on camera. It's about here, and it wasn't to the top, and I already used a little bit on 2 sample boards as I was practicing. So you can see just how far this small can of paint really goes over the whole piece. And if I was to say, how does it feel? It glides onto the surface as you imagine paint would do. If you've never used any other brand of furniture paint, then this paint would be a real must. I think if you've never painted furniture with other brands, go with this paint because it goes on so beautifully, and like I said, great coverage. So the other thing that I've changed my mind, and I said that I wasn't going to do, is I'm going to add some dark wax detailing to some of my mouldings. I was going to keep it flat, but I can't resist. I'm just going to add a slight shadow here and there to some of those details. And because I'm doing that, I'm going to apply a furniture wax over the whole piece. Now, this is something that the manufacturer doesn't suggest to do. It's just something that I've trialed and it worked out really, really beautifully. So as it says on the can, it's dead flat. I know that the wax will apply really well to the dead flat paint. It will give it a low luster, which I think it will also highlight some of these details with the light passing across it. So a little tickle of paint. I'm going to put you on fast play so you can see me tickle the paint, wax it, put the handles back on. Please stick around to the end so you can see how I staged this piece in all of its glory. Thank you for watching. I've really enjoyed doing this project today, and I will catch you all next time.
Seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I've changed for the better this time. I thought I would never be fine. I strive just to say I'm alright, and for the first time in a long time I'm alright. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I'm not falling, I'll push all my chips and call all in. I'll bet on myself, you keep stalling. I hear destiny and it's calling. I'll keep my head up high through the downs and lows, and we're all going life. but I'ma choose what's right and take what comes and goes. And ain't no one in life holding me back no more. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago.